wonderful. What if you need cool B-roll?
Yeah, it feels like that's what it feels like.
Cool B-roll. Yeah, half of the people are sprayed, somebody got teased, somebody got
Somebody
yeah, the last I would say 40 minutes.
But I had these two guys in the black glasses, the black shirts.
Yeah, it was like really intense. Lots of spray,
yes!
lots of cutting, pushing, arrest, everything.
Just follow the orders, asshole!
Actually, you know, after half of the crowd got sprayed, they're not like, they're like spread on the entire street in groups, like 5-10 people. It's not like a solid crowd. It's like 5 people here, 10 people there, 5 people there. So, but yeah, that's not what we need.
Remember that, people. The Nazis followed the law, too. The Gestapo started, much like you guys.
7 o'clock, 7 a.m.
So did the concentration camps, for fuck's sake. They were immigrant detention centers in the 20s first. When it was still a democracy.
No problem. I'll be here. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. Bye.
Learn some history, motherfucker. And respect. Some of you guys are actually nice. Even though you almost hit me.
We're just a couple weeks away from the start of the 2026 World Cup, and now we're learning who will represent the U.S. men's national team here on their home turf. Fans packing New York City's Pier 17 for the reveal of the U.S. men's roster. 26 players will represent the United States for the first men's World Cup in their home country in more than 30 years, and fans are excited.
Absolutely cool to get to see who we're going to be rooting on in a few weeks.
Senator Tim
9 o'clock
right.
on this Tony P. Tuesday. That means it's time
The
for
final
the
leg.
live zone prime time. Yeah, the final leg of a long day for
here.
Mr. Tony P.
Whew.
He's been here since the 1 o'clock hour. Did the Take It To. He did he did Like It or Not at 7.
Like It or Not 7. Do you like it or not? Now
He's
this.
sick of me by this point. Is what
This
he's
is our
trying
third
to
time
say.
hosting today, and plus
Third
I
time
did
hosting
yesterday.
together.
Do you like it or not
You
too?
did, yes,
I
you
gotta
did.
tell you,
You did me a huge favor.
No, listen. I love doing it. It's a lot of
Appreciate
fun.
it very much.
It's the coolest show, man.
Thank you so much to everyone joining us right now on Fox Local and on Fox 5 DC's YouTube page. If you are watching on YouTube, we started the YouTube stream a little early tonight because there were some ongoing protests at an ICE detention center outside in Newark, New Jersey. This is the Delaney ICE immigration. You're going to talk all about that.
Yes, there's a few items, but this all revolves around a hunger strike by some activists as well as individuals that are in the facility in captivity there. So a lot of things going on there, and there's, it's U.S. senators have visited, as well as the governor of New Jersey, Mikey Sherrill, has been down there as well.
Yeah, one of our Representative Andy Kim also getting treated for taking some
we'll talk
pepper
more
spray.
about that.
Yeah, so we'll talk all about that coming up a little bit. We're also going to talk about the World Cup roster reveal, because that was huge news. That aired live right here on Fox 5 earlier today.
It's kind of
we'll
like the NFL schedule
bit.
reveals, kind of.
It is. I mean, it's a big deal. We're really going hard on the World Cup because
a lot of
Fox
reveals
5
these
is
days.
the home all of your World Cup coverage. And then a little later, Tony P, we're going to talk about the Spelling Bee, because that kicked off. The 2026 Scripps National Spelling Bee kicked off right here in Washington, D.C. today. So we're gonna put you to the test. We're going to do a little Spelling Bee of our own right here on Fox 5.
Interesting, because this or that game that we play a little bit, I usually am asking you the questions. Now you're going to give it to me.
That's right. If it's live and it's happening now, though, we are bringing it to you. And right now, Tony P, we are keeping an eye on the Texas primary runoff results, because we are expecting to get them at any point. Right now, you are taking a live look at both the watch parties for Ken Paxton. That's at the top of your screen where that reporter is standing by. And then at the bottom of your screen, that is for John Cornyn, the incumbent. This one, not even close.
I mean, not even.
Right now, Ken Paxton way
blowout
out in front, and it looks like he's going to cruise to an early victory, easy victory. Meanwhile,
a seismic
little
shift
earlier. Yeah, we're going to get into all the details coming up here in just a second. But meanwhile, Texas Democratic Representative Christian Menefee defeated longtime Representative Al Green in a runoff that was defined by heavy outside spending and clashes over generational change. The result will likely end the career of Green, a 78-year-old civil rights champion who was running for a 12th term in Washington. He entered the race in a newly drawn Houston area 18th district after his own district was carved up as part of redistricting. So a huge generational change.
Yeah, another seismic shift.
Yeah, as a result of this redistricting. You see that reporter from Fox News standing by. We may listen in if or when she goes live, but right now, this is the big thing happening, and it looks like Fox is calling it for Ken Paxton right now.
Yep, it's been called.
To 37% for John Cornyn.
That's a blowout.
497,000 votes to 298,000. So, like you said, Tony P, a lot of history being made, some seismic shifts. So you can talk a little bit more about this.
Yeah, I mean, it goes into the White House and President Trump's appeal to the MAGA base and his sway in the Republican Party. We saw it with Bill Cassidy, the incumbent senator from Louisiana, who voted to impeach and not impeach, but to convict President Trump after the 2021 January 6th insurrection charges, and was then tried to get back in the good graces and ended up losing that primary to a Trump-backed opponent. Now we're seeing that in Texas. This was the major prize of it all for the MAGA movement, as well as this divide between Republicans, or rhinos as some folks would call them, versus the MAGA wing of the party. And President Trump waited to endorse. I remember we had, I forget who the guest was on, I think it was about a month and a half, 2 months ago, where they were talking about the war in Iran and President Trump losing some of his base throughout the last few months. He mentioned one of the things that the president shouldn't do is endorse John Cornyn, the incumbent senator, because he was viewed by the MAGA base as someone who was wishy-washy, kind of a rhino Republican, someone that hadn't been there for President Trump post the insurrection, 2024 election. He didn't really endorse on a fast timeline. And this analyst mentioned to us that endorsing Ken Paxton could help really drive some voter turnout where there may be some depressed turnout among Republicans in many Senate races this November. So it looks like that analyst's vision came true because the president did eventually endorse Ken Paxton, the Texas Attorney General, very late in the race. This was after the runoff in Texas. Just a quick note for everybody, a primer here, that in Texas, you have to get 50% of the vote. If you don't, you go to a runoff. It's kind of like you see in Georgia sometimes as well with their Senate races. Saw that in 2021 and 2022 as well. And it's all about getting that number 50%. Well, Ken Paxton tonight got way over 50% because he has nearly, I think it's almost nearly 2/3 of the vote at this point. And a lot of that did come from President Trump's endorsement. However, Ken Paxton was leading heading into this runoff election by a pretty decent margin. John Cornyn's been there since 2002. Very much Republican establishment. The NRSC, which is the Senate campaign arm, had put a lot of money behind John Cornyn. This was the institutional party versus the grassroots. And it looks like the grassroots have won tonight. Just a few notes on Ken Paxton, though. Republicans on the Hill and outside the Hill are very nervous about this potential matchup between Ken Paxton and James Tallarico on the Democratic side because Ken Paxton has some baggage. He was impeached by his own party in Texas for misconduct and for issues in office. He also has had some marital issues and infidelity that have been public with his wife, filing for divorce, and that was a very public story last year. So you have those items really coming to the forefront of this race, and a lot of Republican operatives, institutional party members thought that John Cornyn was a much more electable candidate, especially against someone like James Tallarico that's generational. He has a great social media presence. He's done the podcast tours, Joe Rogan, all this stuff. Cornyn could be the safer play. But Ken Paxton won out, the more the grassroots candidate. The question now is going to be this race becomes a turnout election. Can Ken Paxton motivate the MAGA base and President Trump's audience to get out and vote? And will that outweigh the Democratic enthusiasm? I see, I couldn't spell that word in the spelling bee. That wasn't even a word. But the enthusiasm that there is behind James Tallarico right now. But we also saw a pretty tense primary between Tallarico and Representative Jasmine Crockett. So this Texas race, there's a lot of tension and anxiety in both of these races, and it's going to be an interesting way this turns out because this could be Democrats' best shot at getting a Senate seat statewide in Texas since, get this one, since the 1980s and Lloyd Benson, who was the 1988 vice presidential candidate for Michael Dukakis, for all of you who were alive back then, okay? He became Secretary of the Treasury, and that was the end of Democrats being in the Senate. And one of the last times Democrats won statewide was in 1991 in Texas for Governor Ann Richards, who served for 4 years. So this could be a major moment for Democrats with this Ken Paxton nomination tonight.
Yeah, and you can see behind the reporter right now, the stage is packed. So we are standing by, anticipating that we will hear from Ken Paxton at some point soon.
The AP's called it too.
Possibly, yeah. The AP has called
Fox
it.
Has got it.
So possibly hearing from John Cornyn as well, a concession speech
and
at this
the
point.
end of his career,
End of his career, for sure.
And this really goes to show you, Chris, that even though the president is in the mid to high 30s in popularity and is slipping by the day with the Iran war and the back and forth on that and losing a lot of young voters and independents, he still has a hold on that Republican base in these primaries. And it goes to show you that in term one, President Trump, he waited on primaries. You had Bob Corker and Jeff Flake and others that left. Mark Sanford left and were pushed out by President Trump in the White House. But now it's a lot more organized in term two, where it's systematic. They went in and defeated Thomas Massie with one of the highest paid-for campaigns, a primary race in recent history, to oust Thomas Massie in a House seat. Now you see tons of money being invested into Ken Paxton on the ground from more Trump acolytes in Trump world. And you have Bill Cassidy as well. A lot of establishment Republicans, the last of them from that pre-Trump era and the George W. Bush era, are going down in 2026 and beyond potentially. And it goes to show you, too, that President Trump may have an impact not only in the White House for the second time, but post the White House if he decides to continue to be involved in building the Republican slate of candidates. Because this is, I mean, you look at it, he still has that pull in this, I would say 35 to 38% of the electorate that is ride or die for President Trump.
No question. We'll keep an eye on all of these live pictures, and we will bring you updates as we get them. In the meantime, Tony P, let's talk about the other major story tonight, which was the World Cup countdown. Because earlier today over on Fox 5, like we discussed, we learned who made the cut for the U.S. men's national team. Fox 5, Fox News, I should say, multimedia reporter Chelsea Torres has all the details there.
We're just a couple weeks away from the start of the 2026 World Cup. And now we're learning who will represent the U.S. men's national team here on their home turf. Fans packing New York City's Pier 17 for the reveal of the U.S. men's roster. 26 players will represent the United States for the first men's World Cup in their home country in more than 30 years, and fans are excited.
Absolutely cool to get to see who we're going to be rooting on in a few weeks.
Center Tim Ream is the U.S. captain. He's the veteran anchor for a backline that includes Chris Richards, Mark McKenzie, Austin Trusty, and Miles Robinson.
Drawing on the experience that we had in 2022 is going to be important. We have a group that knows what to expect and knows what's needed. The training starts tomorrow, and it's all hands on deck.
Star winger Christian Pulisic is poised to be the U.S.'s most dangerous scoring option.
He's got to step up and be the star this summer.
Pulisic leads an attacking group that includes Tim Weah, Malik Tillman, Gio Reyna, Brendan Aronson, and Alejandro Zendejas.
We're hoping for great stuff, so we've dreamt about this moment our whole entire life, so I'm happy to be here with my brothers.
While the U.S. is considered an underdog compared to some of the traditional heavyweights in Europe and South America, fans say don't count them out.
Hopefully can make a run. Trying to keep my expectations realistic, but if we can make the round of 16 quarterfinals, I would be thrilled.
The U.S. plays its first game against Paraguay on June 12th in Los Angeles, and you can catch it right here on Fox. In New York, Chelsea Torres, Fox News.
Tony P, this is going to be such a big deal.
Oh, it's going to be
a World Cup right here on American soil. We're going to talk a little more about it. In the meantime, we are going to keep these live pictures up at the same time. Let me see if I can figure out how to do this, right?
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah,
there you go.
Look at the difference. Look at the difference in the watch parties.
It's the energy
distinct.
Definitely a little different. In the meantime, let's talk a little more World Cup. The first men's World Cup on U.S. soil since 1994. Mauricio Pochettino coaching his first major tournament with the U.S. Roster evenly split, Tony P. 13 returning players from the 2022 Qatar team. 13 World Cup players making their debut for Team USA. The action for Team USA getting underway June 12th versus Paraguay at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles.
Now, I have some interesting facts for you. That first World Cup ever on U.S. soil was in 1994, and it was June 17th, 1994. Now, for those who don't know the infamy of that day, it was not only the opening of the World Cup, I think Oprah opened it up with a major speech. He was the MC. President Clinton, of course, was a major part of it as well. But Arnold Palmer played his last U.S. Open.
Interesting.
On June 17, 1994, at Oakmont Country Club in his home area in Pennsylvania. The New York Rangers, we're talking about the Knicks, the Rangers had won the Stanley Cup, and the Knicks were going to play in I think it was game 5 of the NBA Finals against the Houston Rockets at MSG. And on the West Coast, because the U.S. is playing in Los Angeles on the I-5 freeway, O.J. Simpson went on the run.
Oh, yeah.
So
that was notable.
It was Bronco chase. So it was all happening on that one day, June 17th, 1994, when the World Cup opened up. And I think it was at Chicago Stadium. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's where they had the opening. But it was a truly infamous day in sports history. I think there's a documentary about it. It's called June 17th, 1994. And it's all just video footage of that day. And I think we have Senator Cornyn giving some remarks.
Oh, thank you, Tony P, for catching that. Let's take you there live right now.
A few years ago, I had a friend of mine say, you know what makes God laugh? He said, when we make plans. I've spent most of my time in the Senate building the Republican Party in Texas and in the U.S. Senate, and I've always supported the Republican ticket, and I intend to do so again in this general election. In this general election. I've said throughout this race that I trust the voters of Texas, and they've made their decision, and I must respect it. Tonight I'm joined up here by three women who mean everything to me, and without whom I never would have enjoyed the incredible ride and public service career that I've had for many, many years. Of course, my wife Sandy, of 46 years and counting, and then our daughters Danley and Haley, of whom I'm enormously proud, and they mean everything to me. Politics is hard on families, especially, but I believe, and I know my family believes, that public service is an honorable calling. Serving others is a high purpose. And while much about politics is ugly, we choose to serve through the good, the bad, and the ugly. Of course, we could not have run this race without an outstanding campaign team that has served me so well through so many campaigns. Truly the finest I've ever worked with. To Rob, Mayanne, and Andy, and the entire campaign team who worked tirelessly and gave everything they had, and who believed in me, I want to express my gratitude. Of course, I want to thank my U.S. Senate staff, ably led in Washington, D.C. by Drew, and in Texas by David. You work hard for 32 million Texans every day that I'm honored to represent, with long hours, high stress, and job uncertainty. I want to express my gratitude to my staff for their incredible professionalism and dedication to the 32 million people of Texas that I'm honored to represent. To everyone who's worked with me, alongside of me for all these many years, I just want to say thank you. And then to my supporters in this campaign, more than 1,000 current and former elected official endorsements, more than 30 statewide organizations, to every financial supporter, every volunteer, everyone who voted for me in this election, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Tonight I'm reminded of something Teddy Roosevelt said in 1910. He said, "It's not the critic that counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and blood and sweat, who strives valiantly, who errs and comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming. But who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end, the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be among those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat." A number of years ago, up in West Texas, that's not the region, that's the city, where there was a terrible catastrophe, the county commissioner up there said something that stuck with me all these years. He said, "Being a Texan doesn't describe where you're from. It describes who your family is." And for the past 2.5 decades, I have represented this family in the United States Senate. During that time, I helped write and pass a number of historic tax reform bills, focus on building our military for tomorrow, helping put hundreds of conservative judges on the federal bench, work to take Washington's boot off the necks of Texas job creators, and help tackle some of our nation's most challenging problems. In this runoff election, approximately 8% of registered voters made their voices heard. And of that 8% who voted, roughly 60% said they were ready for a different direction. Another reminder that those who show up decide for those who do not. There's a simple rule in elections, you've heard me say it before, and that is the candidate who gets the most votes wins. The party in the majority gets to govern, and my hope is to keep my party in power for generations. I am an optimist by nature, which is just another way of saying I am a Texan. Yesterday when I was in San Antonio, where I stood alongside of 109 students who had been admitted to service academies for this upcoming year, this was the 20th time that we've had this academy send-off, and it remains my favorite event of the year, because these young men and women, the leaders of our military and our communities and our nation tomorrow, give me great hope and optimism for our future. Well, a scripture verse comes to mind as well, where the Apostle Paul said, I've fought the good fight, I've finished the race, and I've kept the faith. Over the next 7 months, my service in the United States Senate, I intend to continue my work to help make this nation a better place for all Texans and all Americans. Thank you very much, and may God bless Texas, and may he continue to bless the United States of America. I'll have more to say later.
All right, you've been listening to Senator John Cornyn delivering his concession speech after losing the primary runoff to Attorney General Ken Paxton. Tony
Interesting
P,
phrasing at the end there. I'll have more to say later on. I mean, and it's interesting, the setup here, Chris, it wasn't a rally. I mean, you look at Ken Paxton, he's got a pretty traditional, energized rally versus this was just a press conference. There were no supporters, I think, or like
looks like just the media.
gathering. There was a media press conference. So it seems to me that potentially John Cornyn had internal polling that was showing this result was very possible. And I think maybe he wanted to just have this type of speech to signify that and not have a major crowd out there as he gives a speech where he loses by nearly 30 points tonight. So I think it's a very telling distinction in how both these campaigns are set up. Ken Paxton, we'll wait what he has to say in response, again, for his victory speech. And you see in some of the language that he used, he didn't really call Ken Paxton out by name. They had a very tight and divisive primary. The ads were very much mudslinging back and forth. And he did mention in a little piece in the beginning of the speech that, hey, I'm going to endorse the Republican ticket. I want to see Republicans win in the Senate, and I will keep my oath to my party, if you will, and endorse the candidate that's been chosen, but not a very ringing endorsement by Senator John Cornyn at all, which goes to show you the divide between the NRSC, which is the Senate Republican fundraising arm, and the campaign arm, which John Cornyn was a major part of, versus this more grassroots effort by
didn't hear any mentions of the president either, which
that was fascinating.
No major surprise, obviously, since little love lost between the two. But Tony P, I did pick up on a little emotion, it sounded like.
Oh yeah, I mean, John Cornyn's been in the Senate since 2002, which is 24 years, almost 25 years when he leaves the Senate. He was a state judge at the district level, then he became a Supreme Court judge in Texas, Attorney General for a few years under Rick Perry, and then became the senator. And I think he replaced Phil Gramm, who was a major stalwart for Republicans in the 80s and 90s, and really has had a similar career, 20 plus years representing Texas, and it's a major moment. It's a part of your life that you didn't expect. First of all, I don't think he expected President Trump to endorse. I don't think he expected Ken Paxton to have the type of legs in his campaign that he did, given the fact that he was impeached by the Texas Republicans in the House of Representatives in Texas, which has the major majority. They impeached him for bribery, and they literally put him on probation. He could not be Attorney General for some time because he's under investigation for bribery and things of that nature while in office. Not to mention, he did have some marital situations and issues that came up last year as he approached this campaign. So some people didn't think he would even run for the U.S. Senate, and now all these things have happened within the last year, even as President Trump has slipped in some of his popularity with more independents. Those are more either center independents or right-leaning independents. The ones that are Republican stalwarts that have been with him since 2016, they are not budging. And we're seeing that with John Cornyn tonight, Thomas Massie, Bill Cassidy, Tom Tillis, who decided to not run in the North Carolina primary because he knew that this result would probably happen to him as well. The question now, and I know that John Cornyn did say in a couple ways tonight that he's not going to be, thwart the Republican agenda. He wants to make sure Republicans win up and down the ballot. But could he be someone that maybe acts like a Tom Tillis sometimes on whether it be judicial nominations or certain policies like we're seeing with the weaponization fund at the DOJ or some more controversial policies in that ilk? Could John Cornyn also be potentially a vote to be more independent in the coming months? We shall see. And I think we have the beginning of the rally up here for Paxton, and this is more of a traditional political election night rally.
To you guys, is it not? Who has been working to eliminate the Epic City and other Sharia compounds? None other than Ken Paxton. So I'm sure you guys are thinking what I'm thinking. I'm going to be sad to lose him as the Attorney General. There are very big shoes to fill, but I gotta tell you, Senator Paxton has a pretty nice ring to it, doesn't it? Just kind of flows off the tongue, right? So here's the thing. I don't think that's allowed. I'm not sure he can do both. So here's the thing. While we celebrate tonight, and please do celebrate tonight because this has been a very long, hard road, I just want to remember, I want you guys to remember, this is step one, all right? Step two comes in November. And if you thought Jasmine Crockett was radical, you ain't seen nothing yet, okay? James Tallarico is a very dangerous radical leftist. James Tallarico believes that God is non-binary. James Tallarico believes that there are numerous genders. I don't know, 5, 10, 15, 65, a million. Do you believe that there are numerous genders? Do you think that that is representative of the state of Texas? James Tallarico is a vegan, which automatically disqualifies him, I gotta say. That right off the top, eliminated. Get out of the state. James Tallarico, when asked who he loves other than family and friends, they're like, give me just what one thing do you love other than family and friends? He's like, I love trans kids. Check his hard drive, please. And James Tallarico, parents, listen to this. As a teacher, set up a Facebook page for 11 and 12-year-old students to contact him for homework help. Is that setting off red alarm bells for anyone else? So listen, I'll end with this. In 2024, at the Texas GOP convention, I sat down with Texas AG Ken Paxton and I asked him, do you know anyone who could primary John Cornyn? And he said, I think it's in the cards. And now we see where that journey led. Give it up one more time for your soon-to-be senator. As long as you guys turn out in November, are you going to turn out? I look forward to calling him Senator Ken Paxton. Thank you guys for being here.
Well, Tony P., I think we got a little
Ladies and gentlemen, representing the 26th District of Texas in Congress, please welcome Brandon Gill.
And this also, Brandon Gill was a member of Congress that did endorse before the primary. Now remember, there was not a lot of endorsements prior to President Trump coming into this race of endorsements for Ken Paxton. There was a few members of Congress, I think Brandon Gill, Troy Nels, Burgess Owens, I think, endorsed out of Utah. And, oh God, who else? There's a couple others. But it was mostly in the House. You did not see senators at all. Ted Cruz famously did not endorse in this race at all. Now, which that's very, very typical when you have it. You know, it happened with Mike Lee and Mitt Romney. When they were going through some of their primaries, they did not endorse. I think it's a respect thing in the halls of the Senate where you don't endorse the person you serve with. But what's interesting is even Mike Lee, who was viewed as a very hard-line MAGA Republican in the Senate, did not endorse Ken Paxton. He endorsed John Cornyn. So this is, there's going to be fear, even though tonight the Ken Paxton party and the voters in his base are all excited and they think that they have this on lock. There's still a lot of fear that James Tallarico and his movement and his ability to transcend different parts of media could be a tough fight. And now it's about enthusiasm versus enthusiasm, because I do think with Ken Paxton, the MAGA base gets a little bit of a boost. So the question is, which enthusiasm is going to come out? Because the closest the Democrats have come to unseating a Texas Republican in the Senate was, I think, in 2018 with Ted Cruz versus Beto O'Rourke. And you had the incumbent. And it ended up being a 2.5 point race in favor of Ted Cruz. Very, very tight. President Trump was in his first midterm. So the conditions might be set up for Democrats to do well, but this is still a toss-up. The polls have showed, I think Texas Southern came out last week, 45-45 Paxton to Tallarico. The overall whole of the polls is about 2.5 to 3% in Tallarico's favor. But that's in the margin of error. This is going to be a very, very tight race.
Yeah, and obviously, Tony P., the one thing that will also have a major impact is the amount of money that's going to flow into this race from outside of Texas. Obviously, James Tallarico has gotten a ton of attention on a national level as well, whether it's Stephen Colbert, whether it's The View, whether it's the FCC.
Right, which is that helped him potentially in that primary against Jasmine Crockett, where it was a very, this is 6-7, but it was a very, very balanced. It was a very balanced race.
Right.
Heading up, I can't think of that without 6-7 now, but it was a balanced race. And then one of the moments that helped Tallarico springboard into this moment for him was that Stephen Colbert interview and the fallout from that with the FCC. So the question is going to be, what are the dynamics that happen? The Iran war is going to play into this, but that's going to talk about the enthusiasm for the MAGA base. And Ken Paxton is going to need some of those right-leaning independents to come home. That President Trump number, he's going to need to get some of that to have a shot to retain that seat for Republicans and beat James Tallarico. So it's really, what you're seeing also is this is kind of one of the ground battles of the populism movement, where both these candidates were seen as the populist candidate. They can do the different media. They have kind of different outreach strategies, and it's going to be interesting because both parties took a risk here in a lot of ways. Taking a risk, the bigger risk was to nominate Tallarico and to nominate Ken Paxton. And now we see how this works out. And we're seeing that a lot throughout.
All right, it sounds like he's making his entrance, Tony P., so let's listen in to his victory speech.
Wow. To the people in this room, to the people watching at home, and to the people of the great state of Texas, tonight, we just made history. I want to thank my family, my kids, my grandchildren, the Paxton Patriots, and every single person here today. Without your love, your support, and your prayers, we would not be here tonight celebrating this incredible victory. I'd also like to thank all of the grassroots, local, state, and national leaders who supported this campaign, including Congressman Brandon Gill, who just spoke, Lance Gooden, Congressman Nels, Congressman Wesley Hunt, and Congressman Ronnie Jackson. I'd also like to thank Scott Pressler and Turning Point Action for their endorsements. And then there's one person who I think you might know, President Donald J. Trump. When everyone in Washington told him to abandon me and abandon the people of Texas, he didn't listen. Instead, he gave his complete and total endorsement. President Trump is the leader of our party, and his endorsement in this is the most powerful force in politics. And I'm honored to have his support, and I look forward to working with him in the Senate to deliver for Texas. Tonight, we just sent a Texas-sized message to Washington. I said it in March, and I'll say it again now. Today, change was on the ballot, and change won. Let me be clear, this is not just my win, this is your win. We just proved that this Senate seat doesn't belong to Washington. It belongs to you, the hardworking men and women of this state. We went up against $150 million in all the attacks in the world, and you know what happened? The voters declared loud and clear a simple truth that we know in our hearts and in our souls: Texas is not for sale. Now I want to take a minute to say something about Senator Cornyn. I want to thank Senator Cornyn for his service to this state. John has dedicated much of his life to serving Texas. He's worked diligently for years to help Texas. And for that spirit of service to the Lone Star State and our nation, I'm very grateful. Thank you, John. So no matter who you supported in this race, whether it was me, Senator Cornyn, or you voted for someone different in March, I want to thank every single Texan, and I want to let them know that I want to earn your support. Tonight is not the end of a campaign. Tonight is the beginning of the fight to preserve every value we hold dear. The future of Texas and the future of America is on the line, and I intend to do everything I can to expand our movement. I've won 3 statewide elections because I know how critical it is for our party to come together, and that's what we must do now. Without a shadow of a doubt, I will be the Democrats' #1 target in November. Texas will be the radical left's #1 priority, but if there's one thing I know about Texas, it's that we're not going to let them take it. This campaign is not about red versus blue. It's about so much more. My opponent is the most extreme radical the Democrats have ever nominated. He's even running a vegan campaign, whatever that is. He goes by a few names that you may all have heard of. Some people know him as Tofu Tallarico. Some people call him Six-Gender Jimmy. I've even heard some people call him James Tallarico. And others refer to him simply as Low T Tallarico. But no matter what you call him, let me tell you this: James Tallarico is a threat to everything we hold dear in this state and in this country. He's a threat to our security and our safety. He wants open borders and even said a welcome mat should be at our southern border. He's a threat to our children. He wants boys and girls sports. Gender mutilation surgery performed on kids. And when asked what he loved outside of his family and friends, you heard what Brandon Gill said. His first answer was trans kids. That's weird, and that's a radical guy. He's a threat to our prosperity and Texas economy. He said you can't be a Christian if you support the oil and gas industries. He wants to raise your taxes, and he won't do a single thing to lower costs for you and your family. And finally, he's a threat to our very way of life and our values. I mean, he's a vegan who thinks God is non-binary and that there's actually 6 biological sexes. It's hard to imagine someone more radical than that. No matter what he says or how much he raises, the reality is that James Tallarico is going to be nothing more than a Texas-based puppet for Chuck Schumer and the National Democrats. He wants the open borders policies of Biden, the woke agenda of AOC. He's going to push trillions more in spending. It's going to continue to drive up prices for all of us. He can never become our senator, but I need your help. We know James Tallarico is going to raise more money than any Democrat in America. So I need everyone watching to go to kenpaxton.com and donate right now and support this campaign. Every Democrat, and I would say every Republican, knows that if we lose this state, if Republicans lose this state, we lose the country. But I truly believe that together, not only will we win this race, but we can ensure that America's best days are ahead of us. You see, I'm not just running against the Democrats, I'm running to deliver for you, just as I have as Attorney General. I'm running to lower your cost of living because you deserve to be able to buy a home, afford groceries, and have a high quality of health care without being forced to stay up at night, worrying about how you're going to pay your monthly premium or pay off your debt. In the Senate, I'll support President Trump's America First agenda and finally secure our nation's elections by passing the Save America Act. I've taken on big food and big pharma as Attorney General, and I'm going to continue doing that in the Senate because making America healthy again is critical for our nation's future. As Attorney General, I've sued some of the largest companies in the world like Netflix, Snapchat, and Roblox for taking advantage of our kids by exposing them to dangerous, addictive material. In Washington, I will not stop fighting to protect Texas children from big tech hurting our kids. We live in dangerous times, and that's exactly why I'll support our military and be ready to confront the threat from Communist China, which is our #1 geopolitical enemy. Just a few weeks ago, I helped establish the first ever detransition clinic in the country at Texas Children's Hospital. This will help kids reverse the damage caused by radical doctors who tried to transition them. And in the Senate, I will never back down from taking on the woke mob. I've also seen firsthand how bad judges can destroy our freedom and force a liberal agenda on Texas. That's why I will be dedicated to confirming judges who will uphold and defend the Constitution. So now it's time to finish this, Texas. We have until November to come together and bring as many people into this campaign as possible, defeat James Tallarico, and deliver for our state. I can't thank you enough for your support and your hard work and your vote. Thank you for making history. God bless you, God bless Texas, and God bless the United States of America.
All right, so you've just been listening to Ken Paxton delivering his victory speech after winning that Texas primary runoff, defeating incumbent Senator John Cornyn. Tony P. definitely heard a lot about what his opponent has planned.
That was a major part of that, and then you have some of the more populist rhetoric and policy on tech. The Maha, he put some Maha stuff into that with the food policy, and just wanted to reference, make sure I had all the notes. Very much on the culture wars. I mean, using words to describe James Tallarico like low T Tallarico and things like that. One thing I did notice too is also the SAVE Act. That is one of the major reasons that insiders will say President Trump actually voted and endorsed and actually thought about endorsing Ken Paxton because of his support. The SAVE Act, if those who don't know what that is, it was basically the voting proposal that President Trump and his administration wanted to put out there, especially for national voter ID and things of that nature, and for restrictions on mail-in ballots and that policy. And that's been stalled in the Senate with John Thune and John Cornyn. So that was a major dividing line. It's one of the most important policies that President Trump wanted to get through, according to his quotes and his truths. It was this policy that was a major factor in this endorsement of Ken Paxton. So the question is going to be, what other issues come up on the policy front that James Tallarico goes after Paxton for, what Paxton will go after for James Tallarico? Because right now, it's a lot of cultural wars from Ken Paxton tonight on James Tallarico. We will see what the policy things look like as the months go on. But this is an interesting speech because he was conciliatory to John Cornyn at the top of that speech in a very calm demeanor, not piling on. Was like, hey, he represented Texas the best way that he could, and we thank him for his service. Versus John Cornyn did not say anything about Ken Paxton or mention his name at all. So very different style from both these candidates, put it that way.
A couple months ago when we were talking about this race, Brian Maloney joined us live, GOP strategist.
As I mentioned at the top.
And you and Tony talked a lot about the president's endorsement, whether or not he should get involved in this race. So when we started to see these results come in, Brian, we wanted to bring you back in to talk a little bit more about this and get your thoughts and reaction to the race results.
Oh, absolutely. You guys have great memory. Well, you know, the bottom line here is this is an unbelievable victory for President Trump because President Trump is just cleaning up in his endorsements one after another. And when he stays out of a race, that's when a Republican seems to have the toughest time. So this has been a remarkable evening. You guys have had very astute observations from what I've heard so far. You were both carefully watching both speeches as I was. And I did also notice that John Cornyn, you know, really did not want to mention Ken Paxton's name. There's something else about the John Cornyn, you know, conciliatory whatever speech there was that he obviously knew that he wasn't going to win because he had no balloons, no party planned. In fact, there was no one in the room. He was basically speaking to an empty room for the most part, other than production people or family or whatever. He did not have supporters there. So that was a very strange kind of surreal thing. And mostly it was just Cornyn talking about, you know, he's done this, he's done that. But Paxton is smart in just moving on from Cornyn and getting on to what will be an unbelievable slugfest between now and November. And, you know, you've had like $100 million spent on this race so far. And we're only now, as of tomorrow, going into the general election fight. That's incredible.
It's Texas sized. It's like, what did George Bush say? Everything's bigger in Texas. And it definitely is in this race. Let me ask you this. So the defeat of John Cornyn was pretty Texas sized. It was almost 30 points in the aggregate. Maybe it might be at the end of this night. With President Trump getting involved so late, as we discussed in the previous months, did his endorsement really add a lot because that margin was so large? Because there's a lot of already early voting happening. The runoff had happened. He was leading Ken Paxton heading into the race. Did President Trump's endorsement really boost those numbers, or does Ken Paxton already have that support on the ground?
Well, yeah, so Trump absolutely boosted the numbers. Paxton probably would have pulled it off. Although the early voting was interesting. We had been watching it, and, you know, the Cornyn counties were actually outperforming the Paxton counties in early voting, which was a bit of a concern to Paxton's campaign. So, yes, Trump made a very late endorsement, but it still probably added 10 points to the margin, if not 15. I mean, it put him over the top. It made this decisive. And one thing that's really important, a lot of Texas Republicans were saying, look, we don't want to just beat John Cornyn tonight. We want to wallop him. We want this to be a 30-point victory, which it is, so that we can send a message that the good old boys country club atmosphere of the U.S. Senate is in trouble and that it's not going to be tolerated anymore. And that's what Ken Paxton is going. That's why they're so scared of him and why they put tens of millions, or wasted, the RNC wasted tens of millions of dollars on John Cornyn, who really never had much of a base in Texas. He just never really had much of an opponent in the past, so he skated through. And that's the issue with a lot of Texas Republicans, including especially Governor Greg Abbott.
Let me ask you this. So, of course, in 2023, Texas House Republicans in Texas impeached Attorney General Ken Paxton for bribery and things, malfeasance in office. How do you explain the shift of that type of backlash against Ken Paxton to now a 25 to 30% walloping in this Senate primary?
Because that whole trial was always rigged, and it was always set up by Paxton's enemies, who are the same people who support John Cornyn. It's the Bush wing of things, which is the fast fading relic of the Republican Party. So it was the establishment GOP that went after Paxton with was essentially a sham trial that Paxton overcame, obviously, and was vindicated. If anything, it ended up strengthening Paxton. So, it's just similar to trying to impeach Trump at the national level. Every time they do it, he emerges stronger. So, you really have to be careful when you go after your enemies with a half-baked plan, because, oftentimes it ends up just because the public looks at this and says, they really seem to want him out of there. Why is that? And that's that's the risk that you run. When you're out of touch with the voters and you start engaging in tricks like that, the public, people aren't stupid. They see through it.
Brian, before we let you go, looking ahead now to the general election matchup with James Tallarico, we got a little preview of what to expect. It's gonna be a knockout fight for sure, but there's also going to be a lot of influence from outside the state of Texas. How big of a deal will that be, and how close of a race could this be?
Well, it's such a fantastic question that you ask, and it's such an important point. You better believe that national money will be pouring in to both camps from around the country. With Tallarico, you're going to have California money pouring in like there's no tomorrow. And with Paxton, you'll have money coming in from red states and around the country as well. So this is going to be an epic, epic battle. I think Paxton can still pull it off, but it'll take a fortune, for one. And the ads are going to be bruising beyond anything you've ever seen. So this is wrestling, this is pro wrestling here. And it's going to be entertaining all the way through to November. And on election night in November, this is the one we're going to be watching almost maybe more than any other to see what happens. I mean, the amount of money that is going to pour into Texas is going to be unlike anything we've ever seen in our political lives.
And getting under the hood of that campaign style, so you have Ken Paxton went on stage and talked a lot about culture war issues, about James Tallarico's position on transgender issues or education or religion, and then got into some nuggets of policy towards the end of his speech. James Tallarico did not a speech, but a mini speech and then a post on X and social media welcoming John Cornyn voters potentially into his camp. Do you think that Ken Paxton's early reliance now on the culture war issues will be enough to overcome in this election where there's going to be moral battles and religion and affordability all in this Texas-sized race?
Yeah, so that will not by itself be enough. The transgender issues and things like that. I mean, the culture war issues, you did see that Paxton, as you pointed out, and astutely, was that toward the end there, Paxton was talking about issues. And one of the things that he brought up was going after big tech. And this is actually a really hot button topic right now that resonates with the public. And I would recommend anyone running for office from either party to grab this one, because there is a growing fear and loathing of AI. There is a tremendous anger towards social media networks. You did see that he even pointed out some by name. He mentioned Roblox, which has had huge problems with creeps infiltrating it and talking directly to young children. So he mentioned some of the big offenders there. So he's going to go after that. And that is an excellent campaign issue. But the big one you want to go after, and I didn't hear him mention it or could have missed it, you want to go after these data centers because Americans are fighting back against the data centers. We already have over 5,000 of them, 10 times the number in China. And they're trying to build thousands more. And it takes our water, it takes our power, drives our power bills up. It is the hot button issue. He should grab that one and run, and so should everybody else running for office.
It seems to me these two candidates may have some economic populism where they may agree, because that's a major issue on both sides. And it could run into issue with President Trump potentially, because there is the AI thing that Tech and him are still kind of dancing with, right?
Well, that's it. And I think a lot of us that are Republicans are very frustrated with President Trump right now because he continually pals around with Silicon Valley tyrants. And, we don't like them. And he likes them. And I think it's a fundamental divide that we have with Trump right now. It's a real problem because these guys are not good guys. They're not looking out for our interests. And they're not hiring our young people when they graduate from college with computer science degrees. They bring in foreign workers to work for a fraction of the wage on an H-1B visa, or they fire people and replace them with AI. So American jobs are going to be huge as an issue between now and November. Anybody running for office that doesn't realize that is not paying attention. So trying to get Trump back into understanding these things again, that's a challenge. But if Paxton gets it, he can be out there running on it, and we'll have to work on the president on our own on this.
Very interesting.
All right. Brian Maloney, conservative analyst and GOP strategist. Thanks so much for spending some time with us and joining us here on the Live Zone Primetime. We appreciate you very much. Have a great evening. Tony P.
All right, let's get this done.
If they can't build those data centers in Texas, they're going to try to come here.
They
so
sure are. No, this is
everybody.
Left and right have
Tony
a lot
P,
of agreement on that.
Less than 5 minutes.
Can I do
Let's
it?
dive
Let's see.
right in. Let's talk about some of the other stories you've been watching on this.
Of the midterms, we got a few developments, starting with South Carolina. South Carolina Republicans dealt President Trump's redistricting push a stunning defeat today, with the GOP-led state Senate voting 26-18 against advancing a new congressional map that would have eliminated the state's only majority black district held by Democrat Jim Clyburn. It was the second blow to the redistricting campaign in a single day, as a federal three-judge panel in Alabama separately blocked the state from using its GOP-drawn map, ruling that it was still intentionally discriminatory against black voters and ordering the state to keep using a court-drawn special map. And we talked about the Texas Republicans. We'll move on to the next one. The U.S. military conducted self-defense strikes on Iranian missile launch sites and IRGC boats attempting to lay mines near the Strait of Hormuz on Monday, even as talks to end the war were described as intensifying. Iran accused the U.S. of a clear violation of the ceasefire, and Iranian Parliament Speaker Mohammad Bagher flew to Qatar for negotiations over a possible deal. ICE agents fired pepper balls and pepper spray into a crowd of protesters outside Delaney Hall Immigration Detention Center in Newark, New Jersey on Monday, catching New Jersey Democratic Senator Andy Kim in the cloud. Kim, who said he had positioned himself between agents and the crowd to de-escalate, said his eyes, throat, and lungs were still burning hours later. The protesters were there in solidarity with the detainees, staging a hunger strike over spoiled food, no medical care, and extreme heat inside the facility. The Trump administration proposed today that all federal workers sign non-disclosure agreements barring them from sharing confidential government information, including pre-decisional and pre-deliberative material, even after they leave federal service. The largest federal workers union said it expects agencies to use the NDA as a tool to fire employees who refuse, while the White House cited high-profile leaks about the Maduro raid as justification. The Supreme Court unanimously rejected Florida's bid today to sue California and Washington for allegedly issuing commercial truck driver's licenses to undocumented immigrants. The case grew out of a fatal 2025 crash in Florida involving a truck driver from India who held a California CDL, and only Justice Clarence Thomas and Sam Alito said they would have heard the case. A chemical tank containing white liquor, a caustic pulp mill processing chemical, ruptured at the Nippon Dinaware packaging facility in Longview, Washington earlier this morning, killing multiple workers and critically injuring others. The 80,000-gallon tank was about 60% full when it imploded just after 7 a.m. A 17-year-old boy was bitten by a shark off the coast of Galveston, Texas Monday afternoon while trying to pull it onto his boat, according to the Coast Guard. His father applied a tourniquet immediately, and rescue crews applied a second before the teen was transported to the University of Texas Medical Center, where he was reported conscious and alert. In the world of business, American Airlines announced today it will install SpaceX's Starlink satellite internet on more than 500 of its Airbus narrow-body aircraft starting in early 2027, joining United, Southwest, and Alaska Airlines in selecting Starlink over rival systems. AutoZone fell 9% in the stock market today, its worst single-day drop in more than 4 years, after its fiscal third quarter revenue of $4.84 billion narrowly missed analysts' expectations despite beating earnings per share. BTS swept the 52nd American Music Awards on Monday night at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas, winning Artist of the Year, Song of the Summer for their comeback single Swim, and Best Male K-Pop Artist, going 3 for 3 in their first award show appearance in 4 years. And the ceremony was hosted by Queen Latifah on CBS and Paramount Plus, with Taylor Swift leading all nominations with 8 nods, but leaving empty-handed in a major snub for the Hall of Fame artist. Drake made chart history this week as his 3 simultaneously released albums, Iceman, Habibity, and Maid of Honor, debuted at numbers 1, 2, and 3 on the Billboard 200, the first time any artist has held all 3 top spots at once since the chart began in 1956. Iceman's lead single, Janice STFU, debuted at number 1 on the Hot 100, giving Drake his 14th number 1 and moving past Michael Jackson for the most Hot 100 chart toppers among
Tony P,
male
what does
artists.
STFU stand for again? I'm kidding. Keep going.
I'm not going to do that. Okay.
45 seconds.
And finally, the Supreme Court refused today to intervene in Brian Flores' racial discrimination lawsuit against the NFL, rejecting the league's bid to force the case into private arbitration with Commissioner Roger Goodell as the arbitrator and clearing it to go to trial in federal court in New York. Flores, now the Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator, filed the suit in 2022 alleging the NFL was rife with racism in its hiring practices for black coaches, with fellow coaches Steve Wilkes and Ray Horton later joining as co-plaintiffs. Only Justice Brett Kavanaugh dissented.
Well done, Tony P. 15 seconds to go. Thank you to everyone who joined us here on the live Zone Primetime.
Bingo.
Fox 5 News at 10 coming your way next here on Fox Local. Josh Rosenthal talking about the World Cup Fan Zone coming your way. We're standing by for a presser in Washington as well. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll take you there live.
Angela, you ready? All righty. So, good evening. I'm Scott Goldstein, SCOTTGOLDSTEIN, Fire Chief with Calais 2 Fire Rescue. First and foremost, our thoughts remain with the victims, their families, co-workers, and everyone impacted by today's tragic events. I want to provide an incident overview. At approximately 7:15 this morning, emergency responders were dispatched to the Nippon Dynaway packaging following the rupture of a tank containing white liquor. That is a chemical utilized in the paper making process. Due to the scale of the incident, agencies throughout the region responded immediately and continued coordinated operations on site. This is a large, unified response involving the Longview Fire Department, Calais 2 Fire Rescue, law enforcement, hazardous materials, medics, ambulance personnel, state agencies, federal facility personnel, and many additional partners, many of which are behind me here, along with our political team. Incidents of this magnitude require extensive coordination, and that coordination remains ongoing. We stated this earlier this morning, and I want to reiterate it here now. At this time, we state there's no direct threat to the surrounding community. Again, there is no threat to the surrounding community. Operational challenges. Recovery and stabilization efforts remain extremely complex due to the ongoing hazards. Earlier this morning, I mentioned that there was a roughly 80,000 gallon tank. That information has been modified, and it is now approximately a 900,000 gallon tank of that white liquor process. After evaluations midday, we believe that there could be a potential of 90,000 gallons remaining in that tank. The tank remains unstable, creating a dangerous situation for our personnel, which has created our additional planning. Crews are actively assessing the structural integrity of that tank and working on plans to stabilize that tank before additional recovery operations can safely proceed. Those are the situations and limitations that impact our access to portions of the facility. Now I'm going to turn this over to Battalion Chief Matt Amos with the Longview Fire Department.
Hello everyone, good evening. Thanks for being here. My name is Matt Amos, M-A-T-T-A-M-O-S. I'm the Battalion Chief of the Longview Fire Department. I have some updates on victim information. Today's incident resulted in multiple critical injuries and fatalities. Emergency responders have confirmed that 10 individuals were transported to area hospitals. 8 were employee injuries, 1 was a firefighter injury, and we have 1 fatality. Officials can also confirm that there's currently 9 employees who remain unaccounted for. The recovery operations, they remain focused on safely accessing all affected areas of the facility, recovering victims, and supporting impacted families while ensuring responder safety. Due to the instability of the site, some areas remain inaccessible at this time. All impacted families have been notified as of a couple hours ago. responder safety. One firefighter sustained injuries during the response operations and has since been treated and released. Safety remains a top priority for everyone operating at this scene. For current operations, numerous local, regional, and state agencies continue coordinating response and recovery efforts alongside facility personnel. Due to ongoing safety concerns, recovery efforts will resume tomorrow once conditions allow crews to safely continue operations. In closing, this has been an incredibly difficult day for our community and for everyone involved. We appreciate the professionalism and dedication of the responders working this incident under very challenging conditions. We also appreciate the patience and support of the community as operations continue. We ask that the public continue to stay clear of the area, including the surrounding dikes and ditches from Prudential Boulevard to Washington Way. We will have updates tomorrow by 10 a.m., March 27th. At this time, I'd like to transition to Washington State Governor Paul Ferguson.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for being here. It's difficult always to find the words at a time like this, and as you've heard already from previous speakers, our thoughts and our prayers are with everybody impacted by this tragedy. On behalf of the people of the state of Washington, I want all those individuals to know that we stand with you. We'll be here to do everything we can to help with the situation, and we'll be here as long as it takes. We also deeply appreciate the first responders and their tremendous work that they're doing, have been doing, to deal with an extremely challenging situation. The main thing I want to emphasize is how much I appreciate and I want the public to know the extensive coordination that's going on at all levels of government, many partners, local, state, federal, and many other partners. We just came from very lengthy briefing and conversation from those partners. We were in a room together having a conversation, which was deeply helpful for me. I want to share a few things that we are doing at the state level to assist with that cooperation. Again, I want the public to know everybody's working very hard together in full cooperation, which will help us get through this challenging time. So the state has mobilized to help. Our emergency management division has been in constant contact with local responders and offering support. We've mobilized the Washington National Guard Civil Support Team, which is now on site. They will assist, for example, the Department of Ecology with air monitoring. I've also directed the National Guard Homeland Response Force to be on site. This team can assist with search and recovery in a contaminated environment, as well as mass decontamination. The Department of Ecology and Labor and Industries are also on site. The Department of Ecology is monitoring water quality, and LNI is ready to begin investigating after the first responders finish their very, very important work. The Department of Health is assisting with emergency medical logistics. I have leadership from all those divisions who are here today, joined us in these conversations to make sure we're doing everything we can as a state to support the important work that's going on here and being here for folks as they go through this extremely challenging situation. We will, of course, continue to monitor the situation and offer resources and support. I deeply appreciate all the cooperation. The state stands ready to continue that level of support. One of those key partners is, of course, our federal government. I deeply appreciate Senator Patty Murray being here, and along with Congresswoman, making sure the federal government is a partner as they've been all along. So I want to turn over now to our U.S. Senator.
Governor, thank you very much. And first of all, I just want to express my thoughts, my prayers to all the victims, the survivors, the neighbors, the friends of everyone who's been impacted today. This is an amazing community of hard-working people, and a tragedy like this affects absolutely everybody, and I want you to know I'm thinking of all of you and I'm here for you in any way that you need. Secondly, my gratitude to all of the first responders who have been on the scene since early this morning in a very dangerous situation, who are giving up their personal lives and commitment to make sure this community is safe. And thank you to each and every one of you who are doing that as well today. I want you all to know I'm in very close touch with the community leaders and the state leaders to make sure we are bringing forward any federal responders that we can to help in any way we can. including today EPA and Coast Guard that are here now, and more that stand ready to be helpful in any way that we can. I know there's a lot of questions about how all of this happened, and I want to assure you that we will all continue to pressure to get answers to those questions. This community deserves that. So again, on behalf of everyone here, I want to thank this community for being who you always have been, caretakers of each other. That's what this is going to require for many days to come, and we are your partners and at your side. With that, let me introduce to you your representative, Congresswoman Marie Glisson-Camp-Perez, who's been here, knows many of the people who have been impacted. Thank you for being my partner.
Thank you, Senator. Our first responders and our emergency room workers and nurses and many people here have seen truly unthinkable horrors today. And so as we pursue the dual imperative of getting answers, I'm profoundly encouraged by how many people are checking in on each other. These are tough people. These are strong people, and underneath that requires the strength to ask how you're doing. Check in. Bring a casserole by. The neighborliness is what is going to bear out the strength to get the answers that we need here, and to rebuild and protect our lives and our land and our community. It is unthinkable tragedy here today, and I think at the heart of all that we know and all we don't know is the knowledge of the goodness of people here, and that we lead on that. That's where accountability, that's where answers come from, that's where the strength we build. And I'm encouraged by the people I've seen here today, the electeds, our first responders, you know, our folks from the INE. I'm profoundly encouraged, and it's going to take all of us to rebuild and get these answers. And with that, I'll turn it over to Senator Wilson, who's a nearby resident, as well as our state senator here.
What occurred here today is going to show a test of our community. We're family. In fact, I have family that works here on this site. But because of my knowledge of the local community, I am confident that the team here, the operators on the site, are going to put together the necessary means for the recovery and the remediation aspect of this tragedy. And for those that live here in this community, we know each other, and it is time to reflect on it, but to also be patient if you can. The process is going to take some time. The answers will be directed, but again, I think we're going to get through this. Meantime, prayers, kind words, and let's get this figured out together. With that, I'd like to introduce Representative Joel McIntyre.
What happened today is a tragedy. Longview is a strong and resilient community, and it will recover. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge, though, that there are families today that have lost everything, and they never will be able to get back to normal. They will never recover. Such tragedies like this put things in perspective that it could have happened to any of us or any of our families at any time. And I'm just going to hold my family a little tighter tonight in gratitude, because nobody thought that this morning their loved one wouldn't come back. In these times of this kind of uncertainty and tragedy, we sometimes need to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. A message was sent out from a local religious leader that I think puts it into better words than I can, and I'd like to close by reading his remarks. He said to his members of his church and the community in general, "It is with deep sorrow that we acknowledge the tragic chemical spill that occurred today at the Dynaway packaging facility in Longview.
our hearts are heavy as we consider the impact this incident has had on families, employees, emergency responders, and all those affected throughout our community. On behalf of our church, we extend our sincere condolences, love, and prayers to the individuals and families who are suffering during this difficult time. We especially pray for those who lost loved ones, those who were injured, those anxiously awaiting news about their loved ones, and all who are carrying the emotional weight of this tragedy. We're profoundly grateful for the courage and the service of first responders, medical personnel, plant employees, community leaders who acted swiftly under difficult and dangerous circumstances. Their efforts reflect the very best of compassion, sacrifice, and community service. In moments such as these, we are reminded that the strength of a community is found in the way we care for one another. We encourage our members and friends to continue offering prayers, kindness, patience, and support to those in need in the difficult days ahead. As disciples of Jesus Christ, we believe that even in times of uncertainty and grief, the Savior's love can bring comfort, peace, and hope. May we unite as a community in lifting and strengthening one another. With heartfelt sympathy, John Schmidt, Stake President of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to another representative, Jim Walsh.
What a terrible day. But bad days like this are the test of our ability to come together and to remedy trouble, to get to the bottom of why these things happen and how we can better prevent them from happening again. This is a place where real people make real things. This is not the virtual world. And real things and real industry always carries risk. But it's our job to make sure that risk like this is well managed and to the extent it can be controlled. And I am so impressed with how people at all levels of government, from all sides of the spectrum, have come together to solve these problems today and for the next few days so that we can go forward more safely, more constructively, and more productively. What I ask the people out in the community is be careful about letting gossip run here. We're in the early days of figuring out exactly what happened and how, and figuring out exactly what we can do to prevent this from happening again. So let the process work. Let the responders work. And in time, we will know more precisely what happened and why. But for now, I think all of us are with those families that are waiting to get the answer. And I feel you, I see you, I know what you're feeling. And no one can feel it for you. We can't make it go away, but Godspeed. And know we care for you. I'm so impressed that the pulp and paper workers immediately have put together a facility for the family members to have a place to go and talk to each other if no one else. This is a community, and it is coming together, and at times like this, through sorrow, we see what is best in people, and I'm encouraged by that. And now to close up our comments, the mayor of Longview, Eric Halverson.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. We're speaking to you today under incredibly grave circumstances. As our emergency teams continue their tireless work here, our community has entered a time of profound tragedy and deep mourning. On behalf of the entire city of Longview, our hearts are heavy. Our deepest prayers go out to the families, the loved ones, the co-workers who are experiencing unimaginable grief and pain today. To those families, we are with you. Know that your city stands with you. You're not alone. We will support you through the darkest days and weeks ahead. I want to extend my most profound gratitude to the first responders, the medical personnel, chaplains who have been on the ground since the first alarm sounded this morning. They're working tirelessly in highly complex and dangerous conditions, not only to stabilize the site, but to provide immediate care and spiritual comfort to the workers and families who are hurting. As you heard today, we are fully coordinating our response at every level of government. Thank you, Governor Ferguson, Senator Murray, Representative Blusenkamp-Perez, Senator Wilson, and Representatives McIntyre and Walsh. We are completely aligned on supporting Longview's families, protecting our workforce, and ensuring the full weight of local, state, and federal resources are deployed to assist our teams on the ground. And in closing, I'll invite the command staff to answer any questions that they can, Chief Goldstein and Battalion Chief Amos.
Thank you, Mayor Howardson. As the mayor said, we're here to attempt to answer your questions. Understand, as earlier when we talked to you, we will be able to answer some. We will not be able to get into other questions. I'm going to work just from my right around to my left and identify you all and work that way, okay? Go ahead.
Hi, Ariel Yakabasi with Point 6 News here. Thank you for all of your hard work today and providing the updates to the community. If you could maybe, as much as you can, go into detail about the recovery process here, because obviously we're dealing with some really dangerous chemicals, and you're holding off on recovery efforts for tomorrow since there's still a lot going on. If you could just kind of explain that a little bit more for the general public who might not understand the situation at hand.
So, thank you for the question. The question about details about the recovery process. One of the things that I want the media community to understand and the members of our community to understand is one of the pictures that was put out earlier by Longview City about the tank. That is the 900,000 gallon tank that had the failure. And I'm going to use failure not as a technical word, just as a general description. That tank, as outlined, has roughly 90,000 gallons of product remaining of the white liqueur. That's the concern if additional liquid leaking, because it's very caustic. Additionally, the tank itself collapsing while men and women are in the areas retrieving the co-workers and the members from Nippon. How that gets stabilized is what our primary goal is. Stabilizing the tank, 1, removing the liquid from inside the tank, 2, then accessing the victims that we are able to locate and recover. Our secondary goal is to return all of the workers to their families to have a closure for this incident. The chemicals themselves are ones that the team is very distinctly aware of. We know what the concerns are. We have even hypothesized the concerns of tank A and tank B mixing and having a different issue. And that, as the governor outlined, is part of that lengthy conversation we had inside a little bit ago. We don't know until we know, hopefully tomorrow, how we can stabilize the tank. Do we remove the product first? Do we stabilize the tank first? Or the vice versa? That will be our step forward. Responder and plant safety is the number 1. Then the community is a natural relay to that. But we can't give you details. Thank you. I'm going to go to the front to the back.
Associated Press. The workers who were unaccounted for, what exactly were they doing when this happened, and were they in the same location doing the same thing as those taken to hospitals?
That information we don't have at this time.
Okay, on the taking of the news, I wanted to ask about, at this point, do you have any idea about what caused the tank to overflow, and when was the last inspection of the tank?
All right, so repeating the question, The question is about what caused the tank to fail and when was the last inspection. Do not have that information at this time.
So we're going to speak on crews. First off, emergency crews that responded today. Both Longview Fire and Cowlitz 2 provided fire suppression units, multiple ambulance companies, as well as Medics Ambulance Service to transport those patients, 10 patients to the hospital. We also work with Vancouver Fire Department we use them as a resource when attempting hazmat response. Cowlitz 2 provided some hazmat technicians to make initial access to the area, and we use them for reference for the product and our continued operation. Right now we have the site completely secure, allowing no access in, responders or back replenishing supplies as we make our plans here with all of our partners for our plan for tomorrow for recovery efforts.
With the dangers of the site being present, one of the early planning decisions that was made that we would operate during daytime hours, limiting our risk to only the operational periods during the daytime. That's for the benefit of the safety of the personnel. As Matt outlined, state ecology is here, EPA is here, and that's providing additional resources as well as air monitoring in the community, as well as water sampling to the concerns. Midline 13?
Yep, Dan Griffin with Fox 13 in Seattle. Kind of a two-parter here. So my first part is, can you talk about the danger that this chemical, this white liquor, places people in? I've read a lot of stuff online, so the families of these victims have started looking on Google, reading what this can do to the human body. Can you elaborate on those dangers that first responders now face and what it could do to you if you're exposed to it? And then second off, if it's a 900,000 gallon tank, where did all of this go?
So to outline the question, the dangers of the chemical, the white liquor, and then we're going to use the number of roughly 500,000 gallons of the product go. Let me start with the second and then get into the first. During the explosion, there was also a rupture of a on-site facility water main. I'm going to call it the fire hydrant, the fire main on site. We had a large volume of fire main water combined with the roughly anticipated 500,000 gallons of the liquid that was dispersed. That remained on site. It is remaining on site. The staff here on site has a very robust treatment capability for their operational services on a day-to-day basis, and in conjunction with the state agencies here, one of the things that we relayed, Matt mentioned it in his briefing, is we want the community to stay away from the dike and the ditches between Washington Way here and Prudential. We saw an initial increase in the pH level in that waterway. One of the early calls that were created was to the diking district to turn off their pumps in that area so as to keep it contained there. That message of staying out of that area, Washington to Prudential Boulevard, is what we want everybody to be aware of, and plans are in place to put signage out to ensure that is known for those that don't capture it in the newspaper. The dangers of the white liquor. You take that as
Yeah, the white liquor is used in basically the paper making process. It's a caustic, so it has a high pH. I believe it's roughly a 13 out of 14 on the scale, and it would burn your skin. Basically, second to third degree burns. When you come in contact with it, it is direct inhalation. If you're in a lot of plume, it can be dangerous, but it's more of an irritant as it creates a small cloud on the ground before it dissipates. So speaking checking on our first responders coming in contact with it, like our PPE levels. We do have some damaged PPE that had to be taken out of service because of that, because of what it does to our equipment. But because we did have some of that happen during the initial rescue operations where we were taking viable victims from the scene, and so we did have some exposure to chemicals on our PPE.
Stephen Hoogie from Candia, now top local in Yakima. As someone who's not from the area but lives in the area, can you talk about what this packaging company means to this community and the impact that it's felt throughout the community throughout the area?
Well, the question was the impact of Nippon 908 to the community and the impact in the days forthcoming. I'm going to be pretty broad in my component here. This campus, the one you see here, is a combination of roughly 6 to 7 different companies right within this gate area and beyond. Part of the infrastructure that was impacted by this tank failure will be shut down and has been shut down throughout this day process so that the site can be safe for our operations, which will have a limited production on a couple of the other businesses here on site. That information is one I don't want to get into the details, but it is part of the complex, intertwined nature of the site. You heard our representatives and our state officials talk about how critical this industrial area is to this community. It has been this way for 100 years now and remains that way. Many folks have many generations of family that have worked at these sites and a very broad support off-site for agencies and businesses that support the work on site. This is an impact feeling wide and deep throughout the community.
Jack Villieu, Cairo 7. You know, earlier in the day this was described as a chemical explosion. Since heard the word rupture and now, failure. When this stuff came out, I mean, are we talking it just spills out? Was it under pressure? How exactly did this play out after that tank ruptured? I understand, still not sure how exactly it ruptured, but what happened after that?
Right, so I want to outline what we said earlier. The original call was for an implosion or an explosion of a tank with 3 burned and 1 missing. That was the original 911 call of many that was received by the 911 center. We're not stating that it was an explosion, implosion. We don't know if something precipitated that, and then that was secondary to whatever the first thing was. That's why when we stayed here today, we said failure. As the representatives outlined, the Chemical Safety Board is a great group of folks that when they come here, they will figure that out. They will figure out what happened in that sequence of happening and then be able to identify for this site and all sites like it, how to ensure something like that can be prevented, okay? But we're not sure how. Our focus is on the rescues as well as the recovery, and that will be a step that will be occurring in the days to come. Okay, last one.
Well, of the 9 unaccounted for, you just described like a rescue. Can you talk about what you're relaying to the families, and are we looking at a potential year 40 search operations?
Missed the middle part. A potential what?
Any potential for rescue operations, correct?
As we identified, there's 9 unaccounted for. There were 9 facility staff transported, 1 firefighter transported. The situation here is one that through the AWPPW staff as well as the law enforcement and medical examiner staff, we've provided very detailed information to the families at hand. They were the first to know about the tank's instability and the changes in our in our strategies on site. They are a very strong priority. At the moment, we do not believe, we are not aware of any rescues that are yet to be made that are being hampered by the situation at hand. We had folks in firefighting gear make entry, and then we had folks in hazmat suits make entry, and did checks into areas that were dangerous, extremely dangerous. So as I say, there's no belief of rescues that still need to be made.
We also use drones to access those areas secondary after our responders had been in them in that recovery, the initial rescue operations.
So thank you very much. As we outlined, you'll have an update provided by 10 a.m. tomorrow, and I appreciate you being here as well as the help throughout the community. Thank you very much.
So recovery begins again tomorrow morning.
Operations are continuing. The stabilization process begins tomorrow morning.
For recovery, then.
Stabilizing the tank and then removing and searching for the unaccounted for.
That begins again tomorrow.
Yes.
So there's not going to be any recovery efforts overnight tonight.
Someone official that can talk to me and my wife, please, sir? Okay. Because these things are untrue. Nobody's contacted us. Okay.
I have 2 boys that are in there as missing, and nobody has officially contacted me at all.
Well, they should have escorted her out of here as soon as she identified who she was. Like they just like
that
put
was
her
the corner that was
in
talking
yeah.
with MTP. Yes.
Well,
that was the corner.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
I did not get that.
Yeah, go talk to her. It's like
Well, I mean, corners
that.
of chapel.
I know, but still, but like, I know, but like,
that's not. You know, well, yeah, specific.
Like, we're
no, I
like-
know they should have moved. Yeah. They should have.
he said they would have an update at 10 a.m.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
He said that at the beginning.
Okay.
Just that they would have updates.
doesn't sound like everything's going to get to me like
Yeah, I did hear that. I was like putting that stuff in Teams to the team.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, I can only do so much to check this.
Right, yeah.
Like, I'm in the back. Huh? Not really. Just more.